It's Groundhog Day in America. A tale of two nations. Trump versus Biden, part 2. America first versus America last. Morning in America versus a weekend at Bernie's vacation to hell. It is a choice between a man who helped create 7 million new jobs pre-COVID and a man whose presidency has created the worst economy since Jimmy Carter and the most global insecurity we have seen since World War II. Now, it would seem like an easy choice, which would make tomorrow's debate between President Trump and President Biden a cakewalk for the 45th president of these United States. But that assumes that we live in an honest world. And I'm here to tell you that the days of honesty in America's public square, brought to you by the people in media entrusted to ensure honesty survives, well, unfortunately, those days ended a long time ago. Fortunately, though, President Trump appears to be ready for anything that they throw his way.
I think I've been preparing for it for my whole life, if you want to know the truth. And I'm not sure you can lock yourself into a room for 2 weeks or 1 week or 2 days and really learn what you have to know. And I've been through it. I've been, a popular president.
See, we have entered the ends justify the means era in the American public square. So long as it hurts President Trump, anything goes. So long as it props up Joseph Robinette Biden, well, the motto is clearly hear no evil, see no evil. So let's talk about all the things that will probably never be covered in tomorrow's debate or on any of the networks claiming to be fair arbiters in this 2024 election. You won't hear that credit card defaults and auto loan defaults hit a 10-year high on Joe Biden's watch. You won't hear that nearly 600,000 Americans have defaulted on their car payments and are hiding the family minivan from the repo man on Joe Biden's watch. These are stats worse than during the Great Recession. You're certainly not going to hear that 1/3 of all the people that attempt to trade in a vehicle owe more on the car than the car is actually worth. You're not going to hear about the savings accounts of everyday Americans dropping by nearly $6 trillion since 2020. That's trillion, with the capital letter T for trouble. Or that every last dime of the $2.1 trillion that people saved during COVID has already been spent. Which makes sense since personal credit card debt has eclipsed $1 trillion for the first time, well, ever. See, most sane people living through this nightmare, they would call that an economic tsunami of doom. Tomorrow on the debate stage, if it even comes up, it will be referred to as recovery. Right now, every day, approximately 204 people are dying from a fentanyl crisis this President Joseph Robinette Biden and his allies called a Republican talking point. We have allowed a Chinese Communist Party that has put spy balloons over our heads and illegal police stations in our communities to acquire farmland adjacent to 19 critical military bases around the country. And this is the same Chinese Communist Party that has attempted to breach our military installations no less than 100 times. And Joseph Robinette Biden has done nothing. The news coverage has said nothing, and I can guarantee you none of this will be discussed during tomorrow's debate. And honestly, that should terrify us all. See, this is the legacy of Joe Biden, a man who has been sleepwalking his way through 3.5 years in the Oval Office, while the world and our nation has become a more dangerous, destabilized shell of their former selves. Right now, as we sit here, there are clearly terrorist cells operating in this country. That is not hyperbole. It is a statistical reality. It is testimony we have heard in the halls of Congress. And it is exactly what happens when you debase the sovereignty of your nation. It's what happens when a nation makes a solemn vow never to forget the horror of 9/11, and then 19 years later elects a president who willfully eliminates every meaningful deterrent to illegal immigration, resulting in 8 million individuals storming our southern border illegally. See, our borders are wide open. Aliens are invading our country. They're taking American lives, and yet our president, he is shamelessly refusing to use his power as president to secure this nation. Since Joe Biden took the oath of office, nearly 300 people on the terrorist watch list have been apprehended attempting to enter our nation. It was 12 under President Donald J. Trump. In fact, just today we learned that the Department of Homeland Security has identified 400 individuals that were smuggled into this country by an organization connected to the terrorist group ISIS. 400. 150 have been arrested. 50 remain at large. We have no idea who they are. We have no idea where they are. This is a president in Joe Biden who sold the scrap metal to ensure no wall could be built. It was Joe Biden that killed the Remain in Mexico policy. Joe Biden, whose DOJ sued the state of Texas to take down the buoys in the Rio Grande. Joe Biden's Department of Justice suing the state of Arizona to force them to remove the temporary barriers securing their border. And tomorrow, Joe Biden is going to get on a debate stage claiming that the real problem was the Republicans. We're the ones that want an open border. And not a single moderator, not a single person in the mainstream media is going to push back against what can only be described as an abject lie. So yes, tomorrow's debate should be a complete undressing of an emperor who has already demonstrated he has no clothes. Joe Biden should be asked to explain why he stood on a debate stage and lied about his son's business deals in China. CNN should demand to know why his current Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, in the lead up to the 2020 election, picked up a phone and called the deputy director of the CIA, and out of that phone call came a letter signed by 51 former members of U.S. intelligence claiming that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. All while the FBI had determined 11 months prior to that phone call ever being made or that letter ever being written that the laptop was 100% authentic. So you would think the news, they would be apoplectic that their credibility was used to amplify an undeniable falsehood, and that Joe Biden used that falsehood on a debate stage to win the 2020 election for President of the United States. But you see, that's what happens in an honest world, a just world, a world where every candidate, good and bad, is held to the same standard. And that is not the world we currently live in. Because the power structure of this nation, they used every dirty trick known to man to put Joseph Robinette Biden in the Oval Office, and they're pulling out all the stops to try to keep him there. Ends justify the means, America. And you don't need a groundhog named Punxsutawney Phil to see his own shadow to know that a second term from Scranton Joe brings with it winter in America, not a new dawn. Just don't expect to hear about any of this on that debate stage tomorrow night.